So what's the latest crisis in the GTA 6 universe now? So people are saying that Lucia looks like a plastic doll, and Jason somehow looks like a very different guy in every screenshot. And the internet is back to calling the screenshots released in June that they are actually downgrades. So here's the actual answer from my viewpoint. It's not a downgrade. It's a customization system and a camera trick that are smacking into each other at the same time. And multiple big brains out there in the technical world actually think these images are too darn good for your PS5. So I'll prove out each one of these points in the next 10 minutes. A few viewers were saying, please, sir, can you go in and compare these screenshots to last year's trailer? I said, sure, for you, anything. And I did the research and I understand why people are losing their minds. There are a few shots where I had to stop and look and say, what, am I looking at the same character? This isn't supposed to be Marvel doing a recast on us between movies, such as when they swapped War Machine, where Terrence Howard was replaced with Don Cheadle between Iron Man and Iron Man 2. And they're trying to, again, in Avengers Doomsday, look at Steve Rogers. I mean, the guy looks like two totally different people from the last time we saw them, but it's supposed to be the same guy. So the community's been focused on whether the characters actually look worse. And I totally get it. It's an obvious reaction when you put the trailer 2 close up next to one of these pre-order shots. But after digging into this for a few days, I think the more useful question is what's actually happening inside the Rage engine that makes these same character shots look so different depending on how you capture them. And once you understand what is actually happening behind the scenes, then you understand this whole debate and it actually just goes away into nothing. If you're new here, here's a quick introduction. I spent 14 years in the game industry working at Day One Studios, Epic Games, and Boss Key Productions. I wasn't the engineer writing character systems, and I wasn't the character artist building faces in Maya. I was the producer working both of those teams and sitting in the meeting where the art directors and the technical directors got together and decided how ambitious these systems could be and what the trade-offs would be in the game. When I'm talking about something I know from experience, I'll actually tell you. And when I'm making an educated guess based on what I'm seeing on the internet, I'll let you know too. So let's get down into the muck and see what's going on. So we need to find out what people are actually going bonkers about, because I don't think this is something that we should just look over casually. A popular site, Notebook Check, wrote that Jason and Lucia are barely noticeable in some of the images. And when you go through all the screenshots by yourself, you can see why. Jason has different haircuts and beard and mustache combinations. In some shots, he has tattoos, and the others he doesn't. Lucia's appearance changes too. She has different hairstyles, clothes, and looks depending on the scene. So at first glance, you might be saying, this feels kind of inconsistent. But then you start to notice what Rockstar is actually showing us. Another site, GTA 6 Bible, broke out the screenshots and noticed something that I think is pretty cool. They're saying that Jason just isn't switching hairstyle. His hair and beard appear to be growing over time. It has different lengths and it has different stylings, and it's in different stages of growth. If that's actually what's happening, this isn't a graphics issue, it's an in-game system that we're looking at in real time. We've seen Rockstar do this before. In Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur's beard grew naturally over time, and you can trim or style it how you want it. So this whole thing has very something out of Lord of the Rings. Aragorn shows up in the Fellowship looking like he's been living under the bridge in a ditch for several years. And by the time he's crowned king, he's fully blinged out with a new haircut and everything else. And nobody accused Peter Jackson of giving the downgrade treatment to Viggo Mortensen. The website Games Radar has already confirmed that Jason's facial hair can be customized. And if Rockstar is showing us screenshots taken from different points in the game using different customization options, of course Jason is going to look like several different people. That's the customization system doing exactly what it's built to do. So here's an easier way to think about it. So say you want to go find your old school chum or chumette from high school, and you dig them up on Instagram and look over their account for the last 5 years. They seem to go through different haircuts, beard phases. They have a period that they keep wearing these weird sunglasses that you don't know what the heck they're doing. But if you pull 10 random photos and lay them side by side, you go, what? Are these even the same person? Of course they are. You're just seeing different versions of the same person over time. And that's what these screenshots are, except it's happening in a marketing screenshot dump that were given all at one go instead of over 5 years. So it feels a lot more jarring. But customization only explains why Jason and Lucia look different from shot to shot. It doesn't explain the whole plastic, weird doll thing. For that, we need to know how these screenshots were captured. So these aren't gameplay shots, and who knows when we'll get a gameplay trailer. And they're not cinematic screenshots either. Who knows when we'll get a trailer 3. They're essentially glamour shots. Characters facing the camera, background is blurred out, and has carefully controlled lighting. The whole point is to show off the clothing and the customization. That changes how your brain sees the whole image. We almost never study someone's face when they're completely frozen. We watch people blink, they smile, they shift their weight back and forth. So your brain uses all those tiny inferences to determine it's a real person and hopefully not a mannequin or AI, which I am not. Take that all away, freeze a face, blur everything else out, and your brain starts flagging every imperfection it would have completely ignored if the character was in motion. And there's a name for this. It's called the Uncanny Valley. This was the same reason the Polar Express creeped everybody out when it was released in 2004, and I still can't watch to this day during the holidays because it has these photorealistic kids with these dead eyes. It's the same reason that Cats movie became an instant legendary disaster. That movie sucked. The characters are almost human, but not quite, and your brain will not let that discrepancy go. This isn't a GTA 6 problem. It's been a problem for decades with games and movies. It's been well documented. But here's another layer underneath that's even more interesting. And this is one of those areas where expending at least 7 years of my career with a company that builds game engines actually helps. There's a technique used in games called subsurface scattering. So when this light hits your skin in real life, it just doesn't bounce off the surface like on a bowling ball. Some of that light travels into your skin, scatters around underneath, and comes back out. That's why skin has a slight warmth to it. That's why your ears glow red when you're standing in front of the sun. Now, I remember when we were making Gears of War, Chris Perna in the cinematic trailers and in the screenshots wanted the locusts to have subsurface scattering so you can see all the veins and the red that's in them. I know this from a personal experience. So that's why real people don't look like they're made of plastic. Game engines simulate this effect. Without it, the skin looks flat and lifeless. With too much of it, the skin starts looking really soft and waxy. The trick is finding the right balance. And from everything Rockstar has shown so far, their skin rendering engine looks incredibly advanced. Think back to the first trailer. People were zooming in on Lucia's face on the Billy Billy version and pointing out the acne scars, tiny wrinkles on her lips, and the individual arm hairs. Those details only read as being realistic because the subsurface scattering underneath all of it, making the skin feel translucent and alive. But here's the rub. Subsurface scattering is designed for scenes or a game that is actually in motion. The camera moves in the scene or during gameplay, the lighting is actually changing, and the characters blink or turn their heads. Your brain blends it all together into something that feels natural. A screenshot takes that all away. Now you've frozen the character in a single pose, the lighting is not changing, and you're staring at one frame in native 4K, inspecting details that were never meant to be studied like a photograph. That's when the skin starts looking really waxy. And your brain jumps to the conclusion that the skin looks like a creepy toy doll. You know, the ones that your wife brought to the house when you were first married and sat in that second bedroom and judged you every time you walked by outside in the hallway. I digress. Anyway, researchers actually study computer graphics, have been documenting this for years. The team at UMBC published findings that the absence of subsurface scattering is the primary reason characters in video games appear plasticky. Here we are with that word again. That's one of those official words in game terminology. You can say plasticky. So when someone says that Lucia looks like a plastic doll, I don't think they're imagining it. I think they're actually describing what they're perceiving. They're just blaming the wrong thing. They're judging a skin shader that was built for a moving interactive game from a single frozen marketing image. That's like pausing a movie halfway through and the actor is caught mid-blink with their eyes open. You're testing the game tech in one situation it wasn't designed for. So let's do a recap on those things we just covered. Rockstar is showing the same characters with different hairstyles, facial hair, outfits, and probably from different points in the story. So your brain starts thinking you're looking at different people. Every image is a perfectly staged shot where nobody's moving, talking, or blinking, which is exactly where the uncanny valley starts creeping in. And the skin rendering is being judged in a static 4K screenshot where the subsurface scattering can't do its job properly. If you cram all those things together, then the comments online makes perfect sense. Not because Rockstar's character models got worse, but because they released a boatload of marketing images that all happen to create perfect conditions for all three of those triggers to fire off at once. Now here's where it actually gets interesting, because independent of the community brouhaha, multiple big brains looked at these same images and came to the almost opposite conclusion. Notebook Check's assessment was that the ray tracing quality and individual hair strand rendering in these shots would straight up whack out the PS5 and the Xbox beyond what's feasible in real time. So their conclusion was that this level of fidelity wasn't something the current consoles are pulling off during actual gameplay. Another big brain named Thomas Morgan went a little bit further. He pointed out that it's unlikely these images were captured or running in real time on a PS5 or Xbox Series X at all. From his eye, they look closer to shots from Rockstar's development environment where the team can push every visual setting to the max without worrying about frame rate. He specifically called out several things with the character rendering, the individual hair strands with realistic light catching the edges, the heavy depth of field on the portraits, and the carefully staged lighting. All those things are much easier to produce when you're crafting a perfect marketing image than when you're rendering it in an open world at 30 frames per second. So that's a little odd. Half the internet is looking at these screenshots and saying the graphics look worst, and the big brains are looking at the same screenshots and saying these might actually be too demanding for your actual PS5 or Xbox X to render in real time. This reminds me of the multiverse of madness. Those aren't really arguments about the same thing. One is a reaction to how the characters look in a frozen image. The other is a careful breakdown of how technically advanced the rendering actually is. If the models had been downgraded, these big brains wouldn't be raising questions about the console hardware struggling to keep up. If you've been watching this channel for a while, this probably sounds familiar. It's the same lesson as the Ferris wheel reflection video. People were pointing to a missing reflection on a distant Ferris wheel and calling it a downgrade, but it wasn't. It was a rendering decision. So this is pretty much the same idea, just with characters instead of reflections. So the environment of all the images actually changes what you're looking at. A skin shader that was built for characters in motion was used in a marketing still. A customization system showing 10 versions of the same character, but we don't know what at point in the story they were actually taken. And these are staged promotional shots that actually push your brain towards that really, really bad uncanny valley. So if you look at these images with those points, you start to change your way of thinking. And the next time someone posts two screenshots and says, look how different Jason looks, Rockstar must have downgraded the game. Now you have a background about what you're looking at, and there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Maybe his hair's changed, maybe his beard has grown, but maybe the lighting's different. Maybe you're judging a skin shader built for 30 frames per second from a single frozen frame. That's not a downgrade. That's just getting your $150 Glamour shot taken with a really, really bad photographer. All right, so that's it for this video. If you found this useful, please subscribe. We've still got trailer 3 dropping sometime in the next century and possibly some gameplay footage coming after that. And you know I'll be breaking it down whenever any of it drops. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite hairstyle or outfit combo that you spotted across all the screenshots? Because some of these outfits are definitely going to be interesting to wear in game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.